But first, hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I like to use outside notes and chords in composition. It's a little different than you might hear this discussed like in improvisation, where you are kind of coming up with your own melodic material over something pre-existing, and that has its own sort of navigational guidelines, I guess, let's call it that. That's a little bit different than what I'm going to talk about. I'm more talking about generating an idea that someone then might make melodic materials over. So coming up with like chord progressions, maybe strong melodies, things like that. There are lots of ways to think about incorporating outside notes into composition. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong way, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some ways I've found very useful in my own writing in the past and that I still use all the time now. So I should say that using outside notes is something that should always come with consideration to style and context. Like I wouldn't want to go playing a bunch of crazy fusion-y lines, you know, if I'm jamming in like a bluegrass trio. That might not really fit the idea of what's going on in that situation. Or maybe it could, you know. Maybe that's the next thing is bluegrass fusion outside note extravaganza. That's a band name right there. I'll sell it. You know, hit me up. We'll talk prices. Outside notes, it's fun, but always should fall within some contextual guidelines. So let's explore this a little bit by taking something we know that has a really strong foundation and just adding like an outside context to it. Let's do a 1-4 progression and we'll do the key of E. So our 1 chord will be E major 7 or whichever E major chord you like. And 4 is A. Well, let's do A major 6. Give us some flavor. So using an outside note, that we have that option, but why? Why would we want to do it? In my mind, I like to do it to add a new context or to show the notes that are inside in a new light. We can do that by maybe approaching one of these chords with something from the outside the key. So let's do that by adding something to approach that A major 6 chord. So we'll add something between the 1 and 4 and keep the feel of a 1-4 and the like strong backbone of it, but kind of add a little deviation. Instead of taking the interstate all the way, we took a little scenic route, and now we got back to our same strong interstate. Yes, the interstate song. That's what this is. Anyway, so how can we think about ways to approach this second chord, the A major 6? One thing I like to do is to consider which voice is most prominent in that like destination sound and use a half step to approach it to give kind of an impression of like I'm getting there, but I'm just almost there and kind of delaying the resolution a little bit. So let's choose F as a note to approach F sharp as that upper voice in this chord. So we're approaching the target note by half step. Let's see if we can use another half step motion in our outside context to kind of give it a uniform sort of feel. So if we're going from E major 7 and we want some way to incorporate the note F, let's use it in the upper voice and the root as like an octave. So let's maybe do this chord as something to insert in between them. Since we're going to an A major 7 chord, there's another extension we can add here to approach another target note in that second chord. If we're using this F chord, let's add a C on the top. So C will be a half step away from C sharp, which is also in this chord. So we're approaching 2 notes that are defining that target chord from somewhere outside of the original key. And it'll add kind of a, instead of the familiar resolution of the 1-4 that we all know, it will just delay that a little bit and kind of add a different spin on it. So let's just hear the chords themselves in sequence. Adds kind of a different feel to the same 1-4 motion that we obviously recognize. So I'm going to improvise just a little bit to demonstrate the idea outside of just the chords themselves and more of like a melodic or soloing context. So there I was still thinking about trying to approach the F sharp using different keys and modes that I know have an F or G in them, so I can approach it by half step. I could also approach it by third or sixth or whatever interval I want. I just kind of like the way the half step resolution works in this situation. What are some key signatures or some modes we can use to approach that from a home key of E? So we can think about C sharp major. As a way to use those sorts of notes and approach some notes inside the key. We could also use the key of F. That also has a lot of notes we can use to approach things inside the key of E. I hope this gets the idea across of like you can use a lot of outside modes and keys to kind of give a different context to something that otherwise might sound expected, which isn't always a bad thing, but sometimes you might not want that. That's one way I really like to think about using outside chords and outside notes in composition specifically. And the same idea can kind of be applied to improvisation in the right context, you know? Not in the bluegrass extravaganza fusion overload, I don't remember, whatever it was. Yeah, maybe not there. But in some other context, if you're writing your own song, it can be any context you want. Thanks for checking out the video. If you've got another perspective on this same idea or a similar concept, leave a comment and let me know about it. I'd really like to read about it and see what other people are thinking on this topic. I'm going to be making some more videos on music theory, composition, guitar, maybe some science stuff. So if you'd like to see some more of that, subscribe at that button below. Oh, I don't know which side it's on. Whatever. You know where it is. Thanks for checking it out, and I'll see y'all later.